Welcome to another outstanding episode of the Sharp Football Show. This one is one of the last big ones we're going to do before the start of the 2025 season. We asked you guys for all of your favorite season-long futures entering the 2025 season. We got tons of submissions. We're going to talk through a bunch of the different submissions. We're going to pick the favorite one, the one that we like the best. We're going to reward that individual with an outstanding prize for the 2025 season and winning this contest. And then Ray and I are going to share some of our favorite props that we have in futures for the 2025 season. So just sit there, don't move. We got a lot in store for you. Real quick though, we just rolled out weekly and monthly options for our packages. We know you guys were very interested. When can I start getting a weekly package? When can I get a monthly package? Because obviously those are going to save you money. They're going to be a lot less expensive than the season-long offerings. So whether you want to ride with us for the full season or just short-term, try it out for the first week of the season, we've got you covered. You can save 25% on any of our weekly or monthly offerings using the code SHOW25. Just go to sharp.football, pick your favorite package, and start winning with us this season. All right, so we welcome in Ray Summerlin, and Ray and I are going to talk about this outstanding contest that we have in store for you guys today. And it's been fun, Ray. This is like the culmination of all of our work this offseason. You and I have some of the props and the futures that we really are fond of, some of the ones that we're going to share at the end of this show, some of the ones we've been sharing. We shared over 20 with our subscribers already so far this offseason. But now it's fun to hear what other people were suggesting, what they think is going to have success this upcoming season, how they believe the 2025 season is going to go. And I'm looking forward to digging through some of these with you here momentarily.
Yeah, we had a ton of them. I mean, we had so many come through. Digging through them was fun. There were a lot of creative ones, a lot of interesting options, a lot of overs. I won't lie to you about that. A lot of overs. I don't know how we feel about that.
I did not. So first of all, we had well over 100 submissions. Some of them were team futures. Some of them they parlayed things together, which we'll talk about. But when you get into the player futures, there were a few team unders. But when you get into the player futures, Justin Fields rushing yards, Aaron Rodgers passing yards, Travis Hunter receiving yards, things of these natures, every single one was an over. I did not see a single player prop under. Now, I didn't review them all. They were whittled down a little bit. I reviewed about 50 of the well over 100 selections, but all of those that I was looking at on that Google Doc, Ray, not a single player prop under. They were all overs.
Yeah, and we know just historically that's not the way to play it. That doesn't mean like one of the ones that I'm going to give out today is an over. Overs obviously hit all the time. But if you were just blanket betting every single prop available to you and you just blanket bet unders, you would end up doing okay because of injuries and all of those things. And that's why these numbers oftentimes look really good. Like especially the passing numbers for quarterbacks often look really good if you compare that to, say, Rich Rebar's fantasy football projections, which you can get as part of the fantasy football draft kit, which you can also get 25% off that using code SHOW25. Look at that. Just throwing that in there for you, Warren. But so like, if you look at those projections, compare that to a lot of like the passing stats, you'd say, well, I guess I'm taking a lot of overs, but that's because we're not taking into account missed games and things of that nature. And so, yeah, a lot of these numbers are pushing you to put the over. I'm going to give out an over at the end of the show. Obviously we're going to bet some overs. We've got some in the futures package, but that is the way that they trap us with these futures a lot. It's just, it's the beginning of the season. We're excited. We want to see people score fantasy points and catch touchdowns. And so they get us, but yeah, we got to be careful with some of these overs, I would say.
Yeah, and the thing is, it does give me some sense of understanding that we're marketing to the general public, and the general public here consuming this show. That's one of the reasons you guys do listen to us, is because we do look at some of the stats about overs versus unders, and we're going to fire on the bets that we think have the highest probability to win. But we're going to talk through all of these with you. And so what we're going to do in the show is I picked 5 to discuss, not necessarily my favorite 5, just 5 of these futures to discuss with you. We'll mention who submitted it and what the prop was, and we'll discuss it briefly. And then Ray's got 5 that he selected that we're going to discuss as well. We're going to crown a winner, and that winner is going to get a 1-month access to our all access package. That gets you all of Rich's fantasy information. That gets you all of our prop betting recommendations each week, all of our NFL betting recommendations each week, and all of our college football recommendations each week. All of that together and all the game previews are part of the all access package. And you're going to get 1 month. Now, if the name that we read out is already purchased an all access package, then we'll just give you a refund for that month of service. So don't worry about that. You're still going to get credits for over $300 worth of value here for this. And if you're somebody who hasn't purchased yet, well, now you got 1 month of picks that you weren't planning on getting. And I guarantee you're going to really get a lot out of these recommendations. And so that reminds me, if you haven't gotten it and you do not win today is the first day that we rolled out the weekly and monthly access for our betting and fantasy and props recommendations. Today's the first day. So don't walk over to sharpfootballanalysis.com and get involved on a weekly or a monthly package. If you've been waiting until the last second, you don't want to pay for the full season, go ahead and get a weekly or monthly offer, and you can get 25% off the price. I mean, we don't just have the price there and it's reduced. We're giving you 25% off of that price as well using the code SHOW25. Last year, a $100 bettor made over $15,000 following our recommendations. And in week 1 alone, college and NFL combined, we hit 29 wins, 14 losses, 67% in week 1. A $100 bettor profited nearly $2,000 following us week 1. So do not miss out. The time to get on board is right now. Let's see if you happen to be the lucky winner of the 1 month free package. But let's start to dive into these. And I'll let you kick it off, Ray. Where are you going with one of the first recommendations or one of the first submissions from one of our newsletter subscribers?
Well, there was somebody who submitted named Bryce C., who is definitely a man after my own heart. I don't know if he saw the podcast, the Win Total Draft podcast we recorded on Tuesday, I believe released on Tuesday, but he said Bengals to miss the playoffs. It's plus 115, plus 120, somewhere around there, depending on where you got it. I like this bet a lot. I do have some concerns about placing this bet. Like, I do think there are some worry points for sure. And I'll get to those in a second. But the thing about the Bengals and what we saw in the preseason, the flaws for this team are just like so obvious. It's so obvious what the flaws are. And maybe they were right. And I do think part of kind of what we saw with the Bengals and what they decided to do this offseason, it seems like they thought Lou Anarumo was a lot of the issue. I doubt, like, I'm going to fall and say it's more of a personnel issue. They didn't add enough for things to be meaningfully different this year on defense. They do have, obviously, they're going to have Trey Hendrickson. They drafted Shamar Stewart. We'll see what happens. So I think that the flaws are obvious. But the other side of that is that even with all those flaws last year, if you look at what this team probably should have done, if they don't lose games they should have won, they should have been a playoff team last year. And I think that that's a completely fair argument to make. Is even as bad as the defense was last year, they should have been a playoff team likely. And the reason for that is because they have Joe Burrow and they have Jamar Chase and they have two really good players, but they also got elite seasons out of those guys. They got healthy seasons out of those guys. Is that going to continue? I don't know. And so you put all of this together and all of the kind of positives and things you can say, the reasons you can say, well, they got a little unlucky last year not to make the playoffs. Maybe they'll make it this year. Joe Burrow is really good, which obviously we think here at Sharp Football, he's really good. They've got really good players. Even they've got on defense, we don't necessarily like the defense as a whole, but Trey Hendrickson's a really, really good player. They've got elite players. And all of that could just carry them to the playoffs. And that's why I've toyed with like really making this one of my bets. I haven't done it to this point because I'm worried just that Joe Burrow is just that dude and we're going to have that season out of them. But those issues on defense are just so obvious. And I just don't think they've done enough. And I think we're going to have a season that's a lot like last year. And ultimately, I'm not going to be shocked at all if they miss the playoffs.
Yeah, and look, with regard to the Bengals, it was a fun discussion point back and forth with Ray last night as we were trying to figure out which of these guys might get crowned the champion of this contest and win a free month of recommendations from us. One of my issues was I did like the Bengals. I like their season win total under, but the issue that I have seen since that point in time was a lot of pro Bengals momentum in terms of what they might do this season. They went out and they tried to correct the issue that has plagued them and potentially caused them to win only 9 games each of the last 2 years, which is they lose too many games early on in the season, and they're losing those games because maybe Joe Burrow is not playing enough in the preseason and developing that quick chemistry with his receivers. So they rectified that. They played Joe Burrow a lot more than they ever done in the preseason to get him back on the same page with a goal and a real clear defined focus that they've mentioned. You know, a lot of teams, having talked to coaches and whatnot, they have goals, they have strategies, they have desires of things that they're trying to achieve, and they write it on the chalkboard. They talk about it in their meeting rooms, and it's pasted on the walls of the facility and above doors and in meeting rooms. And they don't really talk about that publicly. The Bengals have talked about this publicly, which shows you how important it is to them that they want to come out and start a lot faster. So we'll see if they are able to do that, but they've clearly made the moves to allow them to do that. And then they rectified some of their other issues. I mean, they went and signed Reisner to help bolster the offensive line. He is a plus player for that offensive line, considering what that group was. They ended up coming to an agreement with Trey Hendrickson, which I don't know about you, Ray. Give me 30 seconds on this after I'm done. I thought Trey Hendrickson basically caved. I really thought, like, nobody really talked about that publicly, but I believe that, I mean, he took, it's only going to cost them $3 million, Bengals, $3 million more dollars this year because they had added a void year, and they got a player who wanted a longer term deal. And now people on social media are just like, well, that's great for Trey Hendrickson, and he's betting on himself to have another. Like, the dude did something that like 3 other players in NFL history have ever done with 17 and a half sacks in back-to-back years. And now you're expecting him to like have another career year over 30 years old. Like, he wanted that that assurance for a longer term deal. He didn't get that. And yet this is being spun as like a win-win for team and player. I think this is a massive win for the Cincinnati Bengals, and it's definitely going to help them as they start the season, having Trey Hendrickson in there in camp.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, right? It's tough for him because he wanted the long-term contract. We know what can happen with injuries. And like you said, I think that's a point that you've made a couple times this year that I think is important to remember, is just how good he's been. I don't know if we really are, or if we're really like taking into account just how good this guy has been and how, you know, that long-term security is there for him. I do think like maybe this raise, and I need to get more into it, but I think his franchise tag cost next year would be massive. It's like 35 million.
35, yeah.
And so maybe this makes it more likely that that's not going to happen and that he gets into the open market, and maybe that's what he wanted and that's what he got out of it. But yeah, it is disappointing that he's not getting the longer term contract. But from a Bengals perspective, him just being there is so important. What he means for them is so important that, yeah, this is definitely good news for them.
All right, so now we'll move on to the next submission, and that was Kyle P. And some people were submitting these. I personally, Ray, have not played any of these, but what it looks like he did, I'll first share the future. He bet Dolphins, Browns, Saints, and Titans all to miss the playoffs, minus 105. What it feels like to me is he wanted Dolphins to miss the playoffs, but you're looking at the current prices of like minus 275, minus 290. And so he's trying to find a way to drop that down to closer to even money. So he throws in there the Browns, the Saints, and the Titans, all of which are teams that are expected to finish in last place in their division, just to try to get it back to close to even money, which it was minus 105. This is not something that I would give out to clients, obviously. This is not something that I personally have bet, but I understand the rationale. If you're sitting there betting $50, $100, $200 and you're trying to get down on Dolphins to miss the playoffs, and you'd rather try to find a way to do that without hitting minus 290 on the juice perspective. So it was an interesting strategy by Kyle P. I don't know your thoughts there. Obviously, the Miami Dolphins have a lot of problems, and there's a lot of questions in the AFC West as to which teams are going to be good this year after the Buffalo Bills. Like, we obviously think the Buffalo Bills are going to be the best. A lot of people are expecting move forward for the New England Patriots. Time will tell if they actually live up to their lofty expectations. The Miami Dolphins are one of those teams who is in there, and it sort of looks like they've reached their peak and are sort of like stagnating, right? I don't know where you think they are in terms of their trajectory, but like all the hype around the Dolphins, it was going like a roller coaster up the track. And now it's definitely like you got that pit in your stomach that's sinking up, your food's coming up your throat because they're heading down the other direction. And I just don't know if they free fall or if they're able to like somehow maintain winning about 8 or 9 games this year. But what do you think about the Dolphins making the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's betting against the Dolphins to make the playoffs makes a lot of sense. I believe Mike McDaniel is now the favorite for first coach fired.
Yep, plus
Which
200.
like that's there's a reason why that is. Obviously, if we're just doing a pure vibes check, the vibes check is not great in Miami right now. They have a lot of issues along the offensive line. We know what their secondary issues are, and you, Rich, and I talked about how that defensive front seven, and specifically the edge rushers, are actually good. And especially if they maintain their health out there, that is a very good unit, but you need more than that, right? And so there are lots of reasons that you could be worried about that. In fact, I would question, of these 4 teams, which one are you most worried about breaking this? Because is the answer the Titans? Is that like playing in that division with kind of are the Titans the team that you maybe are most worried about losing this bet for you? I think it's an interesting conversation.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the Dolphins are the most likely to make the playoffs naturally, but of the 3, the Titans with Cam Ward, because the unknown factor. I mean, if they're able to go against the AFC South and win enough games, CJ Stroud gets dinged up along the way, you're really only dealing with like Daniel Jones and Trevor Lawrence, which we will talk about Trevor Lawrence momentarily, but that's definitely the team that I think stands the chance to get there the most. Now you've got a submission from Mike Z. Tell us a little bit about what Mike submitted.
So this is interesting, actually including the Browns in this one. And I find this one very interesting. It was Browns 0-5 start plus 340. I don't think I would bet this one, mostly because the Browns play the Bengals in week 1. But the idea for this one is really interesting because you are betting, like you definitely aren't getting the Bengals plus 340 to win in week 1. And after that, the Browns get at the Ravens, the Packers, at the Lions, and then the Vikings. They have a really tough run here to start with. And then, by the way, after that, they get at the Steelers, they get the Dolphins, who we just talked about the Dolphins. That might not be tough. But then at the Patriots, who we think would be going to be at least a competent team before their bye week. And so just taking this away from like the betting perspective, from like a fantasy perspective, I had kept trying to convince myself to maybe be a little bit higher on Joe Flacco. I will play a lot of Joe Flacco in week 1 daily fantasy because he's getting, the Bengals. And so I'm going to feel okay about that situation. But is Joe Flacco going to just survive this run of games if we get to the bye week and they have 2 wins, which it seems very possible given that 1 win, very possible. Does he survive to that point? Do they turn to the rookies? Like there are lots of questions about the Browns that I think we maybe wouldn't have without this 5-game start that they have. And again, like I said, really that first 8 games ahead of the bye week. And so, yeah, it's a tough start for the Browns. I understand the bet completely. If this is just a bet, like you're saying, okay, well, I definitely think they're losing against the Ravens, the Packers, the Lions, and the Vikings. And so this is just me getting the Bengals in week 1 for plus 340. If you kind of like think about it that way, I get it. I think it's interesting. I probably wouldn't do it because you got a lot of variables there, but like the rationale here makes a lot of sense. And I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, based on total efficiency of teams last season, which we know we'll get a lot more strength of schedule information as we get started here a couple of weeks into the season. And I think it's important to let people know that you should be factoring in strength of schedule throughout the course of the season. Don't just look at what the numbers were entering the season. But Cleveland Browns play by far the toughest schedule of opponents in their first 5 games based upon what these teams were last year. So that I can see as well. My next one was from Eric C., and that was Dak Prescott to lead the NFL in passing yards at plus 925. And the interesting part about him, if you look where he sits, Joe Burrow is the clear-cut decided favorite. I want to say it's at like plus 350 or so. And immediately after Dak Prescott is Patrick Mahomes. And I started going back and forth with you about this last night, Ray, about the schedules that these teams are going to be playing. And if you look at the schedule that Dak Prescott is going to play, primarily he is playing a ton of games inside of the dome. We are looking at some of the numbers here, and I want to find them specifically for Dak. So, all right, here we go. Dallas Cowboys. We've got I'm going to look at when the weather might begin to turn, and I'm just going to look from week 9 onward, okay? Dome game at home against the Cardinals. Road game in a dome against the Raiders. That's 2 domes. Home game against the Eagles, dome. Home game against the Chiefs, dome. Road game against the Lions, dome. Home game against the Vikings, dome. Home game against the Chargers, dome. Road game against the Washington Commanders, and a road game against the New York Jets. I think I counted 7 dome games, if my fingers are working correctly here, and 7 straight dome games. They do play a couple of road games outdoors, like week 1, obviously, against the Philadelphia Eagles, which, I mean, this is just a game. Some of these road games that they're playing, they're going to be trailing in these games. They are projected to only win 7.5 games. They're an underdog in, I want to say, 11 games as of right now. This is a team that is expected to be playing from behind. They're going to have to pass the football. And we have some serious questions about their run game itself, about the veracity of the run game, about the ability of these backs to be able to exceed expectations, not only within what they are in terms of their projected yardage, but they're running behind this offensive line that is a little bit weaker than some of the run blocking units of the Cowboys in the past. And they've got a new offensive coordinator, new head coach in there. He's going to be calling plays a little bit differently. And the power of this unit is Dak and the passing game. And you also don't have Micah Parsons there for who knows how long. We're not sure when Micah is going to sign. So all of these things point to Dak needing to throw the football a lot. When you look at like Joe Burrow from week 9 onwards, using the same thing. He's outdoors in Cincinnati. He's outdoors in, I'm just going to go through the weeks from week 9 onward. Outdoors in Cincy, outdoors in Pittsburgh, outdoors in Cincy, outdoors in Buffalo, outdoors in Baltimore, outdoors in Cincy again. He does have an outdoor game in Miami, which will be good weather, and then outdoors in Cincy in back-to-back games to close out the season. I'm basically saying he's outdoors all of these games, and a lot of them are in the northeast area where you could be getting some weather in this time of year. And the same type of thing is true for Patrick Mahomes, who's the 3rd most likely favorite. So enough analysis from me on this one. You've got Dak, who's going to be playing in a lot of indoor games. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, I mean, Rich Rebar and I recorded our final live draft of the year earlier today before you and I are talking. And Rich said, and I agree with him, it's just possible that Dak Prescott is this year's Joe Burrow. Like could be the setup that we're getting here for Dak Prescott, is that he's going to throw a ton. He's going to have to throw a ton, and that's going to be good for CeeDee Lamb. It's going to be good for George Pickens. It's going to be good for, that entire passing game, because as you said, the running game, it's probably not going to work. Even if Jaden Blue does emerge, you like what Jaden Blue can do in the passing game. And so that's not even necessarily saying that we're leaning towards the running game there. And yeah, you said we have lots of questions about that defense and what that defense can be, even if Micah Parsons is playing full time and is still there, right? And any of these trade rumors aren't actually true. And so, yeah, I agree 100% with that. And I think that that's a good call and a very interesting bet. Another one I had was Matthew Golden for Offensive Rookie of the Year from Luke H. I like this pick a lot because I like Matthew Golden a lot. And obviously the numbers you're getting for this, plus 2,200, it's plus 2,000 at least everywhere. And you can get better than that. It is that high for a reason. Like, you are getting those type of odds on this for a reason. It's a tough year to win Offensive Rookie of the Year because you have a good quarterback in Cam Ward, who looks like he's going to start the whole year. You have 2 running backs who are going to be the lead backs and are explosive with Ashton Genty and Amarian Hampton. You have another running back that's had a really exciting preseason, get a lot of touches with Travion Henderson. You have Tet McMillan, the clear number 1 receiver on his team, who's likely to get more targets than Golden. And so there are just a lot of guys ahead of him. And ultimately, that's why I probably shy away from this bet. But I think the logic behind Golden, if it were a different year, the logic behind Golden is really sound. We've got a Green Bay offense that we expect to pass more just because Jordan Love is healthy. We saw them kind of go into a shell last year with Jordan Love dealing with, several injuries, and obviously Malik Willis getting some playing time as well. I love Jordan Love this year in fantasy. He's my number 1 later round quarterback target. Christian Watson is out for at least the foreseeable future. Jaden Reed has a concerning foot injury, right? We don't know what's going on with that. Golden's a big play threat. I just think this all makes a ton of sense. I just don't ultimately think it's the right year for Golden. If it was a different year, then maybe this works out a little bit better for him. There are just so many other options, but obviously that's why you're getting it at this price. And I do think Golden is set up to have a really, really nice year.
All right, I've got one from Austin K here that I thought was pretty interesting, and a player that we might be in on the weekly props market a little bit more than the season long, but I still think that there's value here potentially. Brenton Strange over 475.5 receiving yards, -125 from Austin K. And look, we believe our thesis on the Jacksonville Jaguars this year is, at least mine, Trevor Lawrence is going to have a career year led by Liam Cohen, who is going to coach it out of him because they're going to be reducing Trevor Lawrence's target depth, throwing a lot more underneath, higher completion rate, higher percentage throws, getting the ball out without Trevor Lawrence being pressured. He's terrible when he's under pressure, and it's going to lead to more yards after the catch ability. And all of those things combined, that tends to lead to a lot of targets for your tight end. And Brenton Strange is the clear-cut number one tight end in Jacksonville. They're a team that I think is going to be in some solid situations where they're doing well in games. They might not be getting blown out in games where they need to just come back and abandon all elements of running the football. But I don't really see them blowing teams out by large margins due to their defense. So they're going to need to keep passing the football all 4 quarters, in my opinion, in order to seal off victories and wins. They don't have a really strong run blocking offensive line that's going to help just grind out games. And I think Brenton Strange should be pretty involved in the passing game. What do you think?
Well, I mean, Penn State legend, Brenton Strange. We don't need to say anything else. Obviously we're supporting Strange. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. You do worry. The one concern you would have is if we're getting a lot of Travis Hunter, right? If that is where they're playing him, he's the number 3 target. But we like what we saw from him last year when he was filling in for Evan Ingram. Everything about that. If this offense turns into what we expect it to be, then he's going to be a solid target there. And it's not a high number. It's not a number, that's going to take a lot of targets for him to vault. So yeah, I like that one for sure. Another one I like, and this is from Timothy C, is Rams to win the NFC West at +200. I'll tell you, this is a no-brainer for me. If we knew Matthew Stafford was playing even if not the whole season, but the most of the season, you feel really good about this team. You feel really good about the Rams. Young talent on defense, so you can expect, I think, some progression there, even if we're not, I guess, super excited about the secondary. The offensive line is good, assuming health, and I believe Alaric Jackson came back to practice earlier this week, so that's good. I think Devontae Adams is a better secondary option in the passing game than the Cooper version of Cooper Kupp we saw last year. So all of that points to the Rams having a very, very good year. I am making this bet personally, a +200. I am with Timothy on this one. I am definitely making this bet personally. As we get to is this a bet I'm going to recommend other people to make? I don't know, because we have that Stafford issue. We have that concern about what this looks like if Stafford doesn't play. They do have a much better backup option this year than they had previously, and so that is promising. But ultimately, if Stafford were healthy and we knew he's healthy, the Rams should be the favorite in this division. And so getting him here at +200, I like this price quite a bit for them.
Next up, we've got from Eric S. Jalen Hurts over 10.5 rushing touchdowns, which, by the way, I just want to touch on that, right? Completely concur with everything that you just said there. I was going to be a big buyer in the futures market on the LA Rams in 2025. And then, of course, we saw the Matthew Stafford issues. So dude is a grinder. Dude is just can deal with a high pain tolerance. There's something about that back that's just hard to deal with, especially if you get hit the wrong way. And going into the season, already dealing with a back issue, I just think the alarm bells are going off. And I don't want to tie up money on that.
I like the old man conversations you and I have had about back issues.
Personal injury. We got the chiropractors and medics and all types of healers and things
needling
of that nature.
And cupping, and I'm telling you, being over 40, I threw out my back ahead of a vacation in Mexico. I probably have said this on the podcast, and I had no idea how bad it felt. I'd never had it before, and it gave me so much appreciation for someone dealing with a slip disc or back spasms or whatever, and still being able, because I was in pain walking through the airport. I can't imagine trying to play a football game with that kind of injury. So nothing but respect.
And that's going to be the biggest question, is avoiding the pressure and just how well he moves and steps. You can even step wrong and it can tweak something in your back. You don't even need to get hit. You just have to make a sudden movement or something like that. So that's going to be really interesting. The Jalen Hurts over 10.5 rushing touchdowns. Look, they didn't outlaw the tush push. Will the Eagles say, screw you, Green Bay? I want to see how often the Eagles are going to use the tush push when they play the Green Bay Packers later this season. That's a circled game for a lot of people. But we're going to get a lot of opportunities to see the tush push in 2025. That's not going away anytime soon. And, will we see all the breakaway runs from Saquon Barkley, or will the Eagles need to score from closer to the end zone a little bit more frequently this year? Will the defense play quite as well? Will they have to play Jalen Hurts longer into games and try to keep scoring points? So that's going to be interesting. 10.5 rushing touchdowns from Eric S. You've got your last one is a quarterback passing prop.
Yeah, it's Drake May over 20.5 passing touchdowns from Matt M. I believe we had another Drake May over 19.5 passing touchdowns, but I do think the numbers moved a little bit here. We expect the Patriots to be better this year. At least I know I do. I think we as a site expect them to be a little bit better this year, but I'm still not sure they're going to be good. In fact, I doubt they're going to be really good. So game script could certainly work for Drake May here. The concern you have is that Mike Vrabel is their coach, and he's probably going to want to try to play Vrabel ball. The Titans were dead last by a mile in the league in neutral pass rate when Mike Vrabel was the coach there. They also did have Derrick Henry, and so you always have to throw that in as well. But they were dead last. They do have Josh McDaniels obviously there as well, but in his last coaching stint with the Raiders, they were in the bottom half of the league in neutral pass rate as well over those 2 years. And so you do expect this to be a team that leans more into the run. And so that hurts maybe a little bit here what we expect from a passing attempts standpoint for Drake May. But if you look at him last year in a worse situation as a rookie with a worse supporting cast, his touchdown rate was, I believe, 4.4%, so was right about around the league average last year. So that's not bad. You probably expect some progression there. And so you put that all together and I could definitely see this one. I don't know if I would give this out as definitely a bet for me, because you just don't know what the coaching is going to look like. You are expecting progression from May. You need Stephon Diggs to be healthy and come back as Stephon Diggs. So there are some concerns here, but I love Drake May this year in fantasy, especially because of his running ability and what we saw from him last year and that. So yeah, I'm with this. I like this pick a lot. I don't know if it quite gets to that level that I say, okay, this is definitely one that we need to take.
Last one here is, and I agree with that. It's not something that I'm going to be on as well. I don't know, just so many unknowns yet about how much improvement we're going to get out of that New England Patriots offense that I wouldn't be betting against it, but I'm not going to be riding with it. The last one that, if you've been riding with this one, you've been hitting on this one for years and years and years, and that's Mike Evans to top 1,000 receiving yards. That's minus 115. Submitted by Mark F. And the interesting part about this one is, you saw what happened last year, and the team was dealing with an injured Mike Evans, and it didn't look like he was going to get there. And all of a sudden, he started catching fire. He comes back from his hamstring, plays well. They're throwing him the ball a ton. And then they're sure later on in the season that they're going to give him the targets that he needs to get in order to get this mark, just with how important it was to him personally to continue with it. I think he needs one more season to break the tie between he and Jerry Rice for consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. And as a result, it just seems like if he's healthy, then they're going to make sure that he gets this mark. And the team is set up really nicely now for him to get this mark just due to injuries. I mean, it's not a positive for them, it's a negative, but Emeka Buka is like the guy who's going up in the draft boards, flying up the draft boards because of the injuries to all the other receivers there. But that also helps Mike Evans in turn. I mean, Mike Evans is still going to be a real focal point of the passing attack for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So, betting him at basically minus 115 to hit this record when you know that this is going to be something that they're going to be focused on a ton late in the season, will provide you potentially some hedge opportunities late if he's close at all and he's dealing with anything. But I I don't hate Mark F for selecting this one at all. So that's 5 each. What do you think about that one, Ray?
Oh yeah, just real quick on Evans. You would have concerns if Godwin was healthy, because with the splits, the target share splits we saw last year with Godwin healthy, it wasn't there. Maybe Ibuka can be that, but it's not just Godwin that's not healthy and is going to miss the beginning of the season. Jalen McMillan's going to miss half the year. Kate Otten is going to miss week 1, right? Like they're going to have to throw to Mike Evans. Like it's going to be good for him.
Yep, I saw that as well. It's going to be good. It should be good for Mike Evans, barring injury, of course, which he's older, but this guy's durable as hell. So, okay, now let's crown the winner. We've had over 100 submissions to this contest. We thank you guys very much for being interested in this contest without even knowing what the prize was going to be. We think this prize is definitely going to make you feel good if you win. We narrowed it down to about 50. Of that, we picked 5 each. And Ray, you and I talked about this a little bit last night. I think we're going to go with the winner, and that is going to be Dak Prescott to lead the NFL in passing yards at plus 925, submitted by Eric C. You've got great logic for it. I've got great logic for it. We discussed this previously. We believe that this is a great opportunity for a long shot, and it's a perfect situation for Dak Prescott. So, it's not supposed to happen 50% of the time. It's not supposed to happen 40% of the time, but the odds that you're getting are probably a good bet based upon how frequently this does end up happening, in our opinion. And so Eric C is the winner, Ray. And so Eric C, we have your email address. We are going to be reaching out to you. First, we have to figure out, do you have all access or do you not have all access? And then we're going to credit you with a 1 month to all access, fantasy, betting, NFL, props, college, all the works. Everything that we offer up behind the paywall is going to be yours for free for the first month of the season. So congratulations to Eric C. For the rest of you guys, monthly and weekly packages just went on sale. So make sure that you use code SHOW25. You can get 25% off of the price for a weekly or monthly package. It's a great deal. It's a great offer. It's a great way to try out the service just for a week if you're interested. And it's a great way to get a big discount on that as well. So make sure you go over to Sharp Football Analysis, use code SHOW25, take advantage of the weekly package that just went on sale. Why would you want to do that right now? We already have 7 bets for week 1 that are in there. I will be releasing college football bets very soon. We'll have more NFL week 1 bets that are going to be going live into your account. So make sure you get that. And with that, Ray, we want to move on to a couple of your favorite props, and I'll just give you the stage. I'll let you hit your first and then your second one. What are 2 of the props that you're looking forward to betting? Maybe you've already bet them, but it's still a good line for the 2025 season.
Well, it's funny. We talked at the top about, overs, and I'm just going to give an over out for my first one. And that is Tyler Warren over 58.5 catches, which is minus 110. The other funny thing about it is you mentioned bet it yourself, and I already have. But when I push for this, and we have a props chat that, a lot of us are in, Rich Rebar's in, Curtis Hirsch is in, Ryan McChrystal is in, where we talk about props. And when I push for this, it was 4 catches lower. So we're not getting the good part of this line. I'm willing to bet that. But I still think that this number is low based on what I expect Warren's role to be in this offense and how I think he fits in with Daniel Jones as a starting quarterback, with the hope, I guess, if you're making this bet, that Daniel Jones does have that long leash that they talked about him having. When you think about the kind of player Warren is, he probably needs 90 targets max to get to this number. Since 2019, there are 45 quarterbacks that qualify for passer rating. Daniel Jones is 38th in air yards per attempt among that group. He's first in the percentage of his throws between 1 and 10 yards. You would expect Warren to operate in that area, regularly. He was 50% of his targets this year, and the preseason this year were in that area. Obviously, very small sample size, but still there. There were 33 qualified quarterbacks in 2023. Gardner Minshew, starting for the Colts that year, was 21st in air yards per attempt, first in the percentage of his throws between 1 and 10 air yards. I think this is what they want the offense to be. I think that's why Daniel Jones was tabbed as the starter. They do have a lot of guys that can win in that area. They have Josh Downs, they have Michael Pittman, and then obviously they're adding Warren, but I think they added Warren for a reason. We saw them force him the ball in the preseason. I think if he stays healthy, he tops 100 targets. And if he tops 100 targets, he's definitely going over this number. And so I really like Tyler Warren over even 58.5 as it goes up. I still like this. The other one I like is an under. We're getting into the under realm, and that's Alvin Kamara under 775.5 rushing yards, which is minus 105. I just think you have a lot of outs for this bet. First, Alvin Kamara has missed time every season since his rookie year. He doesn't miss a ton of time. Like, he always plays around 13 games, but he does miss a few games. So that's an out. He hasn't had big injuries. He is older. We'll see what happens then. The time he missed in 2023, to be fair, was because of suspension, but he has missed time. And so that's there. That you could probably take 2 or 3 games off of his projection and feel pretty safe. I do expect him to dominate the running back snaps when he's out there. But the question is, with the Saints, how many games are we going to project a good running script for this team? As it stands, they are favored in just 1 game for the entire season, and it's at home against the Jets, and it's only like 1.5 points. And so that's the kind of scripts that we expect this team to have. We know with their quarterback situation, teams are going to be really keen on the run. They're not going to be scared of Spencer Rattler. They're not going to be scared of Shuck. This is not a great spot, which actually brings me to my third point. I just don't think we're going to see a ton of efficiency from Kamara when he gets these carries. He hasn't been terribly efficient as a runner in recent years anyway. He bounced back some last year, but he was still 33rd in yards per attempt among qualified backs. He was 37th in negative run rate. He was 38th in yards after contact per rush, which is obviously a big concern if he's not getting those lanes created by the offense or the offensive line. This number is low. And so 775 is low. And so maybe it's just too low, and maybe I shouldn't take the under here, but maybe he just gets enough carries, and this is where we go. But I don't expect the Saints to be in a position to run. I don't expect Kamara to be efficient when he gets those carries, and I think it's reasonable to expect him to miss a few games. And all of that pushes me towards Kamara, not hitting his expectations this year.
I don't mind that one at all. Like you said, there's a lot of outs here, and one of those outs is the team down the stretch is looking to try to lose games, doesn't want to kill Alvin Kamara, running it for no reason, and decides to sit him a little bit or exaggerate an injury for Alvin Kamara to let it go gracefully. So that's an out that happens sometimes to some vets in situations like the Saints might find themselves in later on this season. I'm going to go with my first one is going to be an under as well. And this number is Jonathan Taylor rushing yards under 1,200. And the thought process behind this is pretty simple. I think he's hit it in 1 out of the last 3 seasons. Now he's had some injuries along the way, but that's what happens when you got a running back who's expected to go around 1,200 rushing yards. There's going to be a lot of opportunities for him to get nicked up and dinged up because he needs a lot of carries to get there. Secondly, it relates to the fact that this team chose Daniel Jones to be their starting quarterback. And behind that is not just Daniel Jones is going to start the year for us, but like, we believe in Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones is going to be our quarterback moving forward. We don't want to make this a short-term thing. The reason is this. Obviously, we know Anthony Richardson has been in and out of the lineup due to injury and performance and them sitting him and other things along that line. The last 2 years, when Anthony Richardson was the quarterback, their early down pass rate was 46%. They were not throwing the football a lot on early downs. They had one of the higher run rates in the NFL with Anthony Richardson. When it was any other quarterback aside from Richardson, that early down pass rate was 56%, 10 percentage points higher without Anthony Richardson as quarterback, AKA they're going to have Daniel Jones throw the football a lot more frequently. And if you look even at the first half, with Richardson, it was 42%. Without Richardson, it was 56%, right? That's a 14 percentage point straddle towards passing the football. In addition, not only will they be passing the football more now that Richardson isn't the quarterback, they will be running the football less effectively because they don't have the threat of the read option and some of the other things that a mobile quarterback like Anthony Richardson behind center brings to the table, which is why when Anthony Richardson was the quarterback, those running back runs averaged 5 yards per carry. But when Anthony Richardson was not in at quarterback, those running back runs averaged just 4.2 yards per carry. That's a massive drop off from 5 yards a carry down to 4.2. So I just think Jonathan Taylor will be running less frequently with Daniel Jones. He'll be running less effectively without Daniel Jones or with Daniel Jones, and potentially there's room for injuries along the way. So that's one of them that I like. Another one that I like, I'm just going back to it. I've talked about this in the past, but I like it so much, and the number is still at 22.5. Trevor Lawrence's passing touchdowns over 22.5. You can get that minus 105 right now over at, I think DraftKings or FanDuel, might be over at FanDuel, is minus 105. We're going to be passing the football a lot more down inside of the 10-yard line. Almost 50% of all passing touchdowns come from inside of the 10-yard line. We know that Liam Cohen raised Baker Mayfield's pass rate down there to 57%, which was the third highest in the NFL. We also know that the last 4 years in Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence's pass rate down inside the 10-yard line was hovering around 40%. So we are talking about, in last year alone, it was 39%. So we're talking about an 18 percentage point increase in pass rate inside of the 10-yard line, potentially, with Liam Cohen now the offensive coordinator for, and the play caller, head coach obviously, but play caller for the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's going to raise the upside for Trevor Lawrence to be throwing a lot more of these touchdown passes. So it's one of my favorite props, probably my single favorite prop of the entire offseason. Let's see if it gets there. Let's see if Ray gets there with his couple of props that he shared with you. And let's see if Eric C. can potentially get there with his long shot of Dak Prescott to lead the NFL in passing yards.
Can I just say, what has become of us? We gave out a Daniel Jones pass catcher and Trevor Lawrence. What has happened to Sharp Football? Like, what? And
we're betting, and we think Dak Prescott could lead the NFL in passing yards as well. So a lot of.
We need the season to start. I think we might be over our skis here. We might need the season to start. We might.
Well, we're looking for value where people are overlooking value. We're finding those guys that we think have been disrespected or have not performed well, and then we're going over some of their marks. And that's where you could find value. And then we're taking unders in some of the guys that everybody thinks are some of the best in the NFL. So that's one of the things that we're doing here, and we're going to be doing a lot during the season. Like I mentioned before, we started off hot week one, started off 29-14 last year, week one. If you want to get on board for a 1-week subscription, just go over to sharpfootballanalysis.com. Use code SHOW25, get 25% off our weekly subscription. We just rolled this out today. Take advantage of it. Short-term buy-in rate. You get it for a low price point with that 25% off coupon. And I think you're going to find it's a great package for you with so much information, game previews, analysis, picks, write-ups. And we cover everything from NFL to college to props, you name it, everything in between, plus tons of fantasy information as it relates to chats with Rich, helping you set your lineup, giving you rankings for week one. It's all there. Make sure you take advantage of it on a weekly or monthly package that we just rolled out today. With that being said, we're going to sign off here. We got plenty more on the Sharp Football Analysis YouTube. Make sure you are subscribing to this channel because we've got so much stuff coming out next week as well as in the past. I think you're going to love what we've got in store for you in 2025. Go smash that subscribe button, hit that bell, and we'll see you soon.
Breakout.